Welcome back. You're watching Credlin. Well, Joe Biden needs to find new ways to now energise the base if his lower than expected convention ratings are anything to go by. Across all 4 nights, the Democratic convention averaged just over 20 million viewers in a nation of 328 million people, I might add, down by 21% when you compare it to the 2016 convention's average 25.5 million viewers. Of course, some will say a big problem was the power blackouts in Democrat-heavy California, given more than 500,000 residents of this country's most populated state lost power as hot weather crashed their electricity grid. Now, I don't think a ratings fall, though, is the biggest problem that this blackout has exposed. The Australian's environmental editor, Lloyd, joins me now. Thank you for your time, Graham. You've written about this on the weekend and the comparisons between California and, of course, South Australia when it comes to power supply. What are they?
Yes, hello, Peter. Well, the issue is one that is being grappled with around the world as people try to move to renewable energy, and that is to make sure that there's enough power in the system at times of very high demand. The similarities with South Australia and California are quite striking, where both places have retired traditional forms of fuel such as gas and nuclear in the case of America. And South Australia, of course, closed down its coal-fired power. And what you have is a big spike in demand during the hot weather when everybody's turning their air conditioners on. Now, the air conditioners are going on at the time that the sun's going down and the solar power is not generating so much, and there's a shortfall. So this year, in the last week, the power authorities in California have been forced to cut people off and do load shedding. And really, the whole week was really on tenterhooks over there as to whether the power would be available. And what it's done, it's highlighted one of the great issues that needs to be grappled with if people are going to pursue closing down fossil fuels and moving to renewables only.
I've got to ask you about Biden's pledge. He says it'll be the globe's largest ever investment in clean energy research and innovation if he's elected. He wants to spend over 10 years, $400 billion. Now, I'm keen to see what you see as sort of the climate change mood, given everything's, post-pandemic appears to have taken a bit of a back seat in terms of voter priorities. How do you see it playing out?
It does. Certainly what you're seeing in the United States is that there has been really a move with climate change moving right off the agenda of public issues. They're interested in government stability and the pandemic and other things, obviously. But Joe Biden, if he's elected, it really intends to go back to the agenda that Barack Obama was following with climate change, and try to position the United States as a leader in this area. And one of the things is this extraordinary pledge to spend $400 billion on research and development. And it's got to be said, this is something that Australia has always been very keen on. And whenever we've attended conferences, Australia has said that the best road forward is through investment in new technologies. And if you look at the things that Biden has highlighted, it's really small-scale nuclear reactors. It's getting the price of batteries down to 1/10 of their current rate and pushing ahead with things like carbon capture and storage and reuse. So these things are, if they are achieved, they really will transform this agenda to move to other types of energy. But the extraordinary amounts that are being earmarked to be spent show how far away we are from that at the moment and what needs to be done.
And of course, we in Australia are far away from those technologies like small-scale reactors for nuclear and nuclear at all. We're still back in the unreliable and highly expensive and imported from China products of wind turbines and solar panels. Labor's Environment Action Network, this caught my eye on the weekend. They call it LEAN, L-E-A-N. It was founded by Christina Keneally and Jenny McAllister, for those who at home are not across it. They now want people to turf household appliances that use gas. Now, they're campaigning for people to replace things like, gas-fired heaters and stoves, all to reduce our domestic demand for gas. Now, we've got some of the world's most abundant supplies of gas. Keneally wants us to trade it out and all go electric. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, our electricity is still predominantly generated by coal. Isn't that backward if we're going to have coal cookers as opposed to lower emissions gas cookers?
Well, it certainly is. There's a lot of ideology bound up in this. And of course, the fantasy is that coal is going to be completely retired and all the electricity is going to come from renewable sources. But on the way through, the big contest is whether gas will be a transitional fuel and whether gas will be made available to replace a lot of the on-demand electricity now provided by coal. And you've seen a big contest to try and lock up gas reserves and to not have exploration for gas. COVID has prompted the government in Victoria to say, all right, well, the ban on gas exploration can be lifted. So in a sense, this latest move from Lean has come in behind that and said, well, we'll try and head off any exploration for gas by reducing demand and telling people to stop cooking with gas. It's all pretty confused, to be honest.
But if we're worried that we won't have enough gas for industry, and gas truly has been and long argued as the transitional fuel, and I think we're nowhere near really that transition yet, but why aren't we out there looking for more gas and delivering more gas, not less? Rather than tell people not to use it at home because industry needs it, why aren't we delivering more gas for industry considering our reserves?
Well, there's a huge ideological opposition to fossil fuels per se, and that includes gas, which in Australia's context, we know where the gas is. There's huge resources that have been identified, but there's been constraints on their exploration. And it's an argument that's very current through the government, and I think New South Wales is coming up for a very major contest over development up in the northern region of New South Wales, that Pilliga.
Crazy. Graham Lloyd, as always, thanks for your common sense and analysis.
Thanks, Peta.